Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Gemini. This is a very important full moon. So I wanted to make sure that it is covered in depth because it has got so many aspects and so many healing around it. Now, I am going to be launching two new courses. So if you are interested, then you might want to be checking them out. One of them is going to be about all you need to know about the houses. So this is going to be something to do with how the houses are built on each other from a psychological perspective, what the houses actually mean. And, for instance, it's very important to remember that when it comes to, for instance, transits, and you have got a transit in the ninth house, it is very important to mention that while a planet was in the eighth house, let's say we were meant to be transformed, the meaning of the transiting planet and gain power over it. And when we didn't do that, the planet in the ninth house could struggle, and we need to catch up with all the learnings, what we were doing. But at the same time, the ninth house is stuck between the eighth and the 10th, for instance. So it's something to do with preparation to achievements also. So there is a reason for chronological order of the houses, and knowing the reason behind them will help you with your interpretation skills significantly. So this course will start on the 28th of January 2023, and it will be about 12 weeks. The other one is going to be about the 7 visible planets in each sign. So we will be covering in depth the meaning of each of the 7 visible planets in each sign. So each class will be approximately about 3 hours long. And we're going to be looking at the psychological, the physical, the medical, and the biological point or meaning of those planets. So this is definitely something which is going to be very good for all levels. If you are a beginner, it suits you. But if you want to deepen your knowledge, for astrology, then definitely this is a course to sign up for. So check them out. This course will start in the middle of February, to be precise, on the 12th of February, and most likely this is going to be about a 12-week course as well. Now let's get started with our lunation in the sign of Gemini. So firstly, a full moon is always a culmination point. We are meant to be, whatever happened around the new moon, it somehow heightens the energy of that, and we need to be dealing with it. The full moon actually means that the sun and the moon are in opposition. So our physical needs and our emotional needs somehow are completely different, and we need to learn to somehow bring them together. Now, a Gemini full moon is always going to be about, first of all, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, which is the day expression of Mercury, because it's a masculine sign, and it represents masculinity. So whatever happens, it's going outwards, really. Now, Gemini is about air. So we breathe in, and that allows us to speak, allows the word to travel so that it can be heard by others. So firstly, the Gemini full moon is going to be about what do I have got to say to others. Now, Gemini is a mutable energy. And by the way, you have got loads of mutable energy going on in the chart. So it's about flexibility, and something is coming up. It's something which is changing significantly. From an archetypical point of view, Gemini is about the merchandiser, the agent, but also the trickster and the pontifex as well. Now, the trickster really is about, kind of like, I want to know more and more, and sometimes I have to exaggerate, or I have to manipulate others to share information with me. The agent, who doesn't necessarily want to do good, or it wants to do good for others as well, but it doesn't necessarily connect on an emotional level. And then the pontifex, which is basically a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual realm, it would really talk about the need to actually bring the two together. So some of the the traits of the Gemini full moon. You know, how busy is my life? How communicative I am? What am I meant to be talking about this time around? What really frustrates me? You know, do I share too much information with others? Or how much data I collect? Now, because we have got this Gemini and Sagittarius axis going on, Sagittarius definitely wants us to go on a bigger scale, to have faith or to believe in something which might be a little bit more spiritual and to kind of have a moral code as well. And Gemini is about collecting all the necessary information what we need. So this Gemini full moon invites you to be flexible about something, to collect more data, to be more curious about something, or kind of like sorting out the information as well, what we have, because you might be having too much information. It is opposed by Sagittarius, and too much of information can cause, can cause not frustration really, but kind of like misunderstanding, scratching our head, becoming scattered overall. But also, what type of connections do I need to make with others? And also, what area of life I must talk out? Sometimes I must protect as well. Now, in the mundane world, Gemini would talk about social media or how much I depend on other people's opinion. Or do I build relationship and connections well with others? Or do I have got a business mindset? And am I able to sell myself the way I want to be seen, basically? So now, this full moon, as I said at the beginning, is very important because firstly, we do have got a oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, but the Gemini full moon is going to be happening on the 7th or 8th of December, depending on where you are. And that's going to be on 16 degree of Gemini. Now, this is going to be the second decan, which is Libra. And within Libra territory, it's going to be actually Sagittarius dot as well. So this full moon has got so much Sagittarius around it. And the Sagittarius is about synthesizing the knowledge, to take it a notch further. Sometimes what happens with Gemini full moon that we just talk, or what we say and what we preach are two completely different things. Also very important to mention that we're going to have to understand what we actually see and realizing that what we see is not always the entire truth. This is the learning curve axis. So we have got so much information out there, which we need to be embracing, but not all of them are going to become useful for us. And maybe you want to ask yourself the question, how much social media, for instance, shape my worldview as well? Now, as I said at the beginning, this full moon is very potent. One of the reasons why, because actually it is very tightly conjuncting Mars, the retrograde Mars. Now, Mars has been retrograde for a month now, and it's going to be retrograde till middle of January, and it's going to be in the sign of Gemini till about the end of March. And this Mars is actually out of bound as well. So when we have got Mars and the moon getting together, this would really talk about how agitated we can feel about the information what we have. Obviously, moon represents our emotions and Mars represents our courage. So one of the invite we have got with this is to learn to express our anger, learning more about the courage of our heart. One planet is very active, the other one is more passive. So how to balance that out? And full moons are always about balance anyway. Mars represents our survival instinct, and moon is something to do with our emotional needs. So it's the realization that we have got the right to have needs and we are meant to be talking about it. Moon represents our family also, and Mars represents conflict. So often, it causes some type of argument in our family too. Definitely, the partnership is going to be a topic for loads of us, just because we do have got a very exact square to Juno as well, which I'm going to speak about a little bit more. And Juno represents your marriage partner, your commitments. So you can imagine a situation where I would like to do something, but my partner doesn't agree, and then we're going to have some type of clashes around it. Often with Moon and Mars, we become emotionally defensive, and then we just shut the door like a child and then run away from the mom, and the mommy is running, but we are faster. So it's very hard to catch us all together. Often with Moon and Mars, depending on the situation, but it talks about repressed anger. And I don't know how to communicate my frustration and anger with others. Imagine a situation, for instance, where let's say you are at work and then you are getting accused of something, not necessarily doing your job. Or you are trying to sell something and then someone says to you, oh, it's a fake product and I don't want that. So you might become angry about it. You just don't know how to verbalize it. So that would be talking to you about the need to actually roll up your sleeves, get things done, and talk about your issues overall. Often, actually, what we get frustrated by is that we have got loads of domestic chores to do, and you kind of feel like you don't get enough help from the partner. And you just want to get home, where there is a little bit of a retreat going on. You can rest your head on your pillow, but you have got so much going on that you cannot really rest. And then we become frustrated about it. Often Moon and Mars could talk about actually sleepless nights too. Now, why it is very important for us is because the fact that Sun and Mars are exactly opposing each other, it really talks about that we are in the midpoint of the Mars retrograde period. So it's kind of like a huge culmination of whatever started once Mars went into the sign of Gemini. And what we might be seeing till about March. And we might see that people, kind of like it's trying to shout while we are crying type of things. Or sometimes it can bring some type of conflicts in the family, and then you see glasses and plates flying around. So your feelings can be quite touchy. I think there is a record amount of out of bound planets as well. Mars, Moon, Mercury, Venus are out of bound, but we also have got a couple of major asteroids also, such as Hygeia and Pallas Athene. So this is kind of a little bit, when the planet is out of bound, it kind of indicates to us that no one is following the order of the king. So everyone is a little bit rebellious about it. So these are 4 personal planets which are out of bound during this full moon. So that would really talk about that what you have got within you is basically very rebellious, and then you want to break away from all, kind of like the social standards, if you like it. So with Mars and the Moon connection, sometimes it is about an internal conflict. So I want to be meeting my needs, I want to be achieving something, but I need someone for that. That really much comes from the square to Juno as well. Or you can imagine when you walk into a room and the air can be cut between 2 people. So we might not argue, but actually we kind of feel like we would be able to choke each other just in a glass of water overall. So there is an element of fighting for your own safety with this. And, because the planets are out of bounds, sometimes it's very easy to explode. And kind of like the last straw syndrome. And, it can become very volatile. Also, it could talk about, I'm just going to eat because I'm angry and frustrated, for instance. So, it's important to talk about anger. Anger is an emotion characterized by antagonism towards someone or something you feel has deliberately done you wrong. And anger can be a good thing as well. It's just the question is how are you going to turn that negative feeling, something into positive, and whether you want to find solution to the problem. And of course, when the anger is excessive, like it can happen with these out of bound energies, can cause problems, such as blood pressure goes up, you know. So the anger is always related to the fight, flight, or freeze responses. And it's in the sign of Gemini, which somehow represents your nervous system. So it's kind of like I'm ready to fight, but at one moment I can also freeze as well. So it's very easy to throw punches or do an attack on someone, or your tactical moves can become a lot more volatile as well. So it's kind of like trying to enforce a new way of conquering something or enforcing a new norm as well. Often with this moon and Mars, we feel very entitled as well. So we believe in our rights, or we believe that we have got certain privileges, or we even can feel superior to other people as well. So, and then we can lash out on our partner when they don't agree with us. So it's very important that we count to 10, we are not going to blame others because our ego can be very fragile this time around. Often, what might frustrate you in the relationship department is that you kind of feel like that your partner is a baby. And you don't want to be a mom to anyone. You want equality in the relationship. And the equality comes from the sun and the moon opposition overall. During a Mars moon connection, we can have very low tolerance for ambiguity and discomfort as well. So we do need to know that we are quite hyperactive this time around this new moon. Now, the fact that Mars is retrograde, it really talks about that we need to go back and revisit some of our information. And it feels like this Mars retrograde kind of wants to stir us onto a new road. Or Gemini can talk about choices, the choices we make. So there is a need here to look at our choices. You might have not been too serious about certain matters when it comes to, for instance, your relationship or your commitments overall. And then you are reminded that, you know what, I have to be a little bit more serious. But typically, Gemini full moon is kind of afraid of commitment and taking responsibilities. It's a very busy bee. They do plenty of things. They juggle between tasks because on one hand, they don't want to get bored. But this full moon actually has got a trine to Saturn as well. So what grounds us, or what helps us to balance this energy out, is the fact that you're gonna take responsibility for something. You're gonna go with the rules. You are not going to be afraid that, that people are not going to see your actions in a rational way. Sometimes Gemini full moon could talk about the fear of having to choose only one thing. But Saturn says to you with that trine that this is the best course of action actually you can do. Now, because there is this square to Juno, which is definitely about marriage and commitments, and Gemini has got the fear of intimacy, because when they fall in love, they cannot think in a rational way. So, this Saturn is kind of telling you with that trine that, you know what, just say no to your logical mind and sometimes go with your feelings as well. And the moon is really trying to help to express your emotions. Often what could happen is that you kind of become allergic of not being listened to or not understood. But the question here is with the sun and moon opposition that are you actually listening also? Because the other party might feel kind of like the same. Do I have got enough freedom in the relationship? Do we socialize enough with our partner? And maybe the solution with that Saturn trine is that I am going to be organizing a little bit of a social gatherings where me and my partner get together and, we're gonna celebrate something. Or sometimes it's about, because it could talk about things like I want to do some type of programs, but what my partner likes, I don't necessarily like those. So it's an element of making sacrifices as well. And the sacrifice comes from the fact that Juno is in the sign of Pisces. So we signed up for something, and we do need to, make sacrifices for the other person also. But Juno, which is very much about the soul contract, if you like it, kind of like the perfect match made in heaven, feels very confused in the sign of Pisces. Not to mention that Neptune is about 6 degrees away from that Juno too. So it can be super confusing whether I'm with the right person or not. And then we project our anger onto others and we get into a fight and we kind of feel like we're getting bogged down in the relationship. So there is loads of commitment issues here. But the Saturn trine really says, you know what, we need to stay together in the very hardest moment, if possible. It also can talk about that you want to be so much up to date with all the, kind of like gossips and news that you forget to attend your responsibilities. So there is an element of need to focus here. Yeah, so that's what pretty much this kind of new moon would indicate for us with Mars and Juno. And there is Neptune square there too, but that's within 6 degrees. Whether we count that as a, possibility of a square, I think we can, because moon, we can give a little bit of a bigger orb there. So talking about firstly, as I said, Neptune and Juno kind of like in a conjunction to each other, which is really talking about being confused about my spiritual existence in a sense. Often when the moon and the Neptune are getting together, we're really talking about that I feel betrayed somehow, or I kind of feel like there's an unfinished business going on, or that life is really hard on us and maybe I'm getting punished from past life. And the Mars retrograde is asking us to look at our actions. Did we act in the right way? Do I need to forgive or do I need to apologize to someone? Often, Moon, Neptune, Mars combo actually brings loads of drama. Dramatic ways of responding to things, dramatic ways of dealing with things. So often this is asking you to somehow heal yourself, to just cuddle with your partner. We don't always need, words. You might want to do something which is actually making your heart a little bit warmer. But there is always with Neptune this element of yearning for something. So yearning for a honest, open conversation, for instance, or yearning for an ideal home or world. Often we might have got some great intuition about the situation. We just don't know how to translate it, or because Mars is retrograde, we might still go against our intuition, and then we do the opposite, and then we're going to regret that. Because typically Mars retrograde indicates that something is going to bite us in the bum if we are not really careful. So life can feel very unbearable, kind of doomed with this full moon, and it's very important to stay real. Remember that Saturn is the one which is actually pulling you out of this situation. Now, by the way, Saturn is important for us here for two reasons. Because it's trining the moon and the full moon. But secondly, that's the dispositor of Mercury. And Mercury would be the dispositor of this full moon. So what it means is that the full moon is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is on 1 degree of Capricorn. So Mercury is kind of responding to Saturn. So Saturn is the key here. And what does Mercury in Capricorn tells us? That let's just focus, let's just look at the details and the facts. Let's observe. Let's slow down a little bit. And maybe it also indicates that sometimes we are a little bit critical or judgmental towards others. So we need to be putting our, basically our ego a little bit aside, if you like it. Now, another interesting thing I'd like to mention here that we do have got a ball chart shape here. And you can see it on the screen. The leader of this ball chart shape is actually the sun. Now, the ball chart shapes typically are ruled by moon. So we have got this moon echoed back here. So talking about the ball chart shape a little bit, basically what happens is that the planets are placed within 180 degree, and they usually take up about 6 signs and houses. Now, I did recently a webinar, by the way, about the chart shape. So if you have no clue about it, maybe that could be a good reference point. I briefly talked about the 12 type of chart shapes in about 1.5 hours. It's available on my website for purchase. So typically the planets are within 130 to 180 degree. It cannot be less than 130 degree because that would be a different chart shape. It would be called as wedge. Now, when there is a kind of like a ball chart shape, the issue is always around the opposition what we've got. Okay, well, the issue is around the moon and the sun. And the sun is the leading planet. So what is the sun? Sun is representing here our needs and wants, but also self-expression, and I don't know who I am. So surely this full moon is really indicating, I don't know what world I live in. Often with the ball chart shape, what happens is that we feel empty. We trying to find something or a partner who will balance us out. And because we don't know who we are, we don't know who we want to be, we feel empty. Often the ball chart shape really talks about me versus the world, and everyone is attacking us, you know. And then if we had some type of unity, then, the other half could help us in a sense. So the ball chart shape people always look for something or someone who makes them feel complete. Often we become obsessed with the leading planet in the ball shape chart. So that would be the sun. So we can just be a little bit too proud, full on pride and not listening to others, just talking all the time. We might not be fully self-aware of ourselves. We might feel that we don't get recognition for anything what we do. We might feel like that we just listen but we don't get listened to. And often the T-square, for instance, in a ball-shaped chart, talks about a defense mechanism. And obviously, Juno is becoming defense mechanism here. So we start questioning our existence, we start questioning our commitments, and we might want to be kind of like signing a different karmic contract also. Often with the ball-shaped chart, what happens is that we are actually kind of feel like we are not good at the empty houses. We become too comfortable with the familiar things, and then we don't go for new challenges, or we don't plan. The planning is crucial here because Saturn is trining that full moon. And Saturn is about building something up slowly. And because Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, you know what? Sometimes I need to get help from others because others might be able to get me out of the of my comfort zone. So this is a very interesting full moon, as you can see. Now, but we have got some other aspects going on here as well. One of them is that it has got a sextile to Chiron. So on one hand, definitely that talks about healing our emotions. The idea of being able to communicate better with people we are close to, but I need to be gathering my courage for it. Often, it could talk about that, not just about the courage we need to gather, it's just about coming to terms with who we are. Often, all these out-of-bound planets and Chiron being in the picture, you do things and you don't even recognize who you are. So Chiron sextile is really about doing some type of healing work around who you are. And Saturn trine is inviting you to plan something, have a step-by-step guide, and making sure that you are actually working the plan. This time around, we don't have any major, other major asteroids involved apart from Juno. I mean, there is a couple of other asteroids, but I don't know them, so I'm not going to mention them, which are currently transiting 16 degree of Gemini also. So, yeah. Another thing which I just wanted to point out here is that also, I find it very interesting that Mercury, which is the dispositor of this full moon, recently had, just before it changed sign, it had a square to Jupiter. And Venus is already in square to Jupiter as well. So that could really talk to me about, on one hand, that, my mind is running 24/7, then Mars and Mercury and the moon are out of bound as well. So it's really about looking outside, kind of like definitely not wanting to get boxed in a sense, and having really extreme ideas overall too. The mindset could be extremely broad this time around. I think we're going to start seeing the full moon in Gemini impacts mostly at the end of December. One of the reasons is because Jupiter will be changing sign and it's going to be on 0 degree of Aries, which is the world axis. On mundane level, I kind of feel like this is bringing some type of attack or blaming others. It could be based on some miscommunication, and it could be highlighting some information what we were shared before, and then it could really divide our opinion whether it's true or false. So guys, this is my interpretation on the upcoming full moon. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you did, please press like and subscribe to the channel also. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.